Hello and welcome back to episode 6 of the Apex podcast. Today I'm joined by Daragh Allen. Thank you for jumping on, man. I really do appreciate it. Can give everybody kind of a rundown of who you are, what you do.
No problem at all. First of all, thanks, Sharon, for having us on. Putting out a lot of great content. So a little introduction to myself. I am a qualified sport and exercise scientist from Dublin. I studied down in IT Carlow and currently an online coach. I've competed previously in junior bodybuilding, and I was actually set to compete what would have been last week, but obviously with the pandemic and so on, that all got turned upside down. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right. And just on that note, because I know that's a big deal. Like I know if I was in that situation and I was competing, that it must be it must be quite heartbreaking. How many weeks left were you on prep before?
I think there was 5 and 7 weeks out. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so
So we
you were
had two
close.
shows to go. We weren't sure if we are going to go for the first one, but we're kind of using that as testing the waters, just regards peaking and so on. But yeah, the main one was PCA Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was tough. It was definitely like once you're that deep as well, you're so invested financially, mentally, physically, emotionally. Look, it does be tough, but like all of this pandemic, it puts everything into perspective. So you actually get to realize, like, it was just dieting. Like at the end of the day, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Even though as serious you take it and all the sacrifice you go through, like there's more serious things going on in the
Yeah.
world. Like
It's just a bit of a fat loss phase, and unfortunately, it's a tough fucking fat loss phase. But like,
yeah,
people are going through a lot worse, and I suppose we
yeah,
should be more like, as you said, it should be more grateful for the opportunity to be able to actually do this. Then,
yeah. It's a privilege. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
to voluntarily be able to commit so much time to train and eat and prepping food, your actual choice of food, like having a coach, that's a luxury. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
people so easily get caught up in like taking it seriously, and like obviously we want to take it seriously, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Well, I just had a little thought there before we dig in. What we must do is I'll get Mark Hodson to jump on as well, and we'll have a bit of
Yeah,
a round table. It,
cheers.
it would be
I
cool.
would love that.
Um,
Yeah.
even if it's just not even for a podcast, and we'll just jump off and have a chat.
Oh, we
Big,
just talk
big,
some mental
yeah.
bollocks.
Right. Okay, so we're going to touch on setting up a successful gaining phase over, like, let's be real here. Tissue takes time, and setting up a successful gaining phase is like, you're not building as much muscle as you think you are in the time that you're doing it.
Yeah,
So let's say we take 12 months. Okay, 12 months in a surplus, and how we can maximize adding every single ounce of tissue that we can possibly do in them 12 months.
yeah.
So I have a number of notes here that we're just going to bang through, but our first one is considerations when it comes to programming.
Yeah. Well, first of all, actually, just before we go into programming itself, the fact that you address that being 12-month period is crucial. So many people, they they think of it like it's so much quicker to lose fat than it is to gain muscle. And like people are like, oh, I've bulked for 6-8 weeks. I'm like, oh, I might diet down now. I'm like, you know what, you're going to look the exact same. Like you have to commit a sustained amount of time, and not just time, but actually keep that intensity over that time. Um, over a
Yeah,
sustained period of time. And then obviously if you need mini cuts, diet breaks, deloads and so on, we're going to touch on that separately. Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
like you'd be better off just going through instead of fucking bulking for 8 weeks and dieting for 8 weeks. You're better off just with 16-month maintenance
you're
or
just
60.
spinning your wheels in that case.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Or like stick yourself in a slight deficit and try build tissue as you diet down, and like to a certain extent you can, like, depending on your training experience and stuff, we can definitely with decent lifestyle setup and decent programming, we
yeah,
can put tissue on in a
recomp
deficit.
is possible, but it's just
Absolutely.
much trickier and much slower. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's about which one's your priority. So that's all it comes down to, really.
Okay, so programming considerations.
Right. So program considerations, the main thing that you need to do, as I say, because this is over a sustained period of time, nail down your favorite exercises that you can commit to long term and you can build that intensity. We know that we have to get strong over different movements, different rep ranges. So pick exercises you can do that in. Like, it's coaching and programming and stuff. It's a balance between art and science. So there's no point having the most perfect programming on paper if you can't commit to that and you can't build that intensity. Like, I actually think you posted about this on your story a couple of days ago, where it's like, pick movements that you're actually going to get you excited, that you're actually going to train and push yourself, which is definitely a great topic. Because if you're not there, like, it's motivation is going to come and go. So you want as many like triggers there as possible to keep you motivated and on track.
Absolutely. And I think if we were to, maybe we will do in time, just do it. I think there's a fucking car going by outside, and this microphone's really good. So maybe you can't hear it. It's okay. So when it comes to programming, so many variables. Like, it is literally guessing games. Like, we can see it, and there's been plenty of people on podcasts with, like, you can sit and just argue about the most perfect way to do things, and in reality, like, we can't.
There's so many ways to skin a cat. Like,
everything works.
Yeah.
Everything works, and two programs put side by side that have, like, that one isn't. They're both decent. They're probably going to work in around the same rate. But, like, we need to take
it's going to come down to the client's application and intensity. You know what I mean? Obviously, there are other things that could potentially make you progress quicker. But again, it has to be carried out to the T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, and you probably agree here as well, that the two things that we can do just off the bat. Like, let's take our one of the main movements that probably a lot of people have trouble in, and that is a leg press.
Yeah.
So for you to get these so-and-so called effective reps, or this motor unit recruitment that we need, we need the ability to train hard.
Yeah.
And this takes practice. You're not gonna come into the gym and in your first year be training hard. And to be honest, you probably don't want to. This can come with time, but there is a time and a place where you're going to have to learn to have that training capacity to actually push. Now, training at home is a perfect opportunity, because you're doing this high rep stuff where we need to take these things close to failure, and if we're not taking these split squats close to failure, we're not benefiting from them.
Yeah,
that's one thing. Yeah, go for it.
That's one thing that I've definitely highlighted with my clients, that when this happened, I said, right, obviously we see this as a setback, I see it as an opportunity. So
Steady.
This essentially is a priming phase, is a great way to put it. It's going to make you don't have that load there to chase. So how else are you going to progress your training? This is the time to focus on the quality of your movements, and a term that I think it was Ben Mikulski I heard saying, you have to qualify before you quantify. So a lot of my programming, I will be very meticulous about execution. Because there's no point doing shit volume. You know what I mean? There's no point being a volume junkie and just adding in loads of reps if we don't have that motor unit recruitment.
Yeah.
If we aren't actually engaging and fatiguing the muscle, if we're swinging our arms around, like, you see, we've seen it. I don't need to go into specifics, but like, if the quality isn't there, there's no point doing more shit quality. That's just going to fatigue your CNS. That's just going to cause injuries and no real muscle recruitment.
Yeah. So the ability to be accurate.
Yeah.
I think another cool one is when it comes to tempo. So, like, we're approximately, let's say, 50% stronger. I think it is close to 50% stronger on our negative.
Yeah.
So, like, we need to, if we're taking things close to fail, like, we need to be close to both concentric and eccentric failure. And the only way we're going to be able to do this is by manipulating our tempo towards you. So it's going to depend on your rep ranges and what works for you, but that's something that you're going to have to find out for yourself. Is like, there's no point, like, especially if you're, like, imagine you're training with reps in the tank, which let's say on the leg press, a lot of people do by accident,
Yeah.
or on purpose. But whatever it is, like we could, like let's say we have the last 5 reps of a leg press, and we're training 2 reps in reserve, so we do them 3 reps, and we've, like, you've only hit failure in one portion of the movement if you've taken that to a genuine 2 reps in the tank.
Yeah.
So there's a little consideration that we can make when it comes to our programming, is making sure that our eccentric and concentric are failing at the same time. Now, if that hasn't been the case forever and you're only figuring this out now, what you're going to have to do is drop your volume back and just start again, because that is new to you.
If you're trying to do the same volume and you're calling this volume your, I think, was it Michael Justel calls it the maximum recoverable volume?
Yeah.
If you're hitting that volume with shit quality and like no tempo, if you try to do it at the right tempo, you're going to fail. You know what I mean? So it's supposed to be more fatiguing. The challenge, the goal with any sort of, not just bodybuilding, but like hypertrophy based training when you are trying to grow tissue, is to make it as challenging as possible. It's not to move as much weight as possible. That's powerlifting. You know what I mean? Like, we as bodybuilders, as physique coaches, we want to stress the muscle as much as possible. People get too caught up. Obviously, we use the weight. The weight's just a tool. That's not the main goal. We use that tool to fatigue ourselves and to get that adaptation.
So our body doesn't know it doesn't know what it's applying force against.
Yeah.
It just, so like we can look at that when it comes to training at home as well. It doesn't.
Yeah, it has more application now because we have bands. You're not bench pressing. You're like doing tempo push-ups, like you're doing 3-second eccentrics. Your chest is on fire, and you're only doing push-ups, but you know that you can do 50 push-ups. Why is it so hard now that you're counting your seconds? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else on? See, we could just sit here and speak on programming for
we could do a full one on programming and periodizations. Like
we will do. We will we will do, but we will leave it there. So take homes from there. Train harder.
Find movements that will allow you to train harder. And actually, on that, a nice little thing that we can do is add in like intensity boosters regards muscle round supersets. We don't need to go into the physiology of why these might be better. We don't need to talk about metabolic adaptations. We don't need to talk about creatine kinase. We just need to say it's going to make you work harder. You know what I mean? If you're able to push yourself more, doing a superset, doing a drop set, most people can't take it to failure because they get to 80% and they're like, oh no, but this too hard. So go do those reps, fatigue yourself as much as possible, drop it, you'll get a few more, and then just keep adding in.
So
people get the failure.
So we can get more effective reps without the nervous system fatigue that we would get from doing straight sets.
Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah. So that's like muscle. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it doesn't matter how, as you said at the start, like we can have the most perfect program sitting in front of us. If we can't adhere to this, and if we can't be disciplined to what we have set out for ourselves or what a coach has set out for us, it's useless. We would be better off with far less in-depth, far more realistic. So I think we're going to touch on adherence and discipline and just making sure you're setting yourself up for wins and not doing anything that's unrealistic. Like if you like, to be honest, you're not going to change your life. You're not going to wake up and have an epiphany and be like, okay, right, well, I'm going to become a bodybuilder now, and every single thing that I do from now until forever is going to be competition specific. But we can over time build up these habits to adhering to whatever is realistic to us. So let's touch on adherence and discipline in a gaining phase.
Right. So definitely the first thing I would face, but I'll say the most important thing if you're setting any goals with a coach is open communication. So they can only help you on what they know. So if you're not telling them, if you're not giving them updates, if you're not keeping them in the loop, they can't actually help you. They can't provide any value to you. Like it might seem that they're just jumping down your throat and because this is your job. But if you're half-arsed in your check-ins, you're getting that half-arsed response. It's not because they're saying, oh, fuck you, but they don't have as much information to go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So regards adherence, it's important to obviously if we have long-term goals, and with the topic of this podcast being an off-season, and with that being such a long-term goal, it's important to structure your goals. There's a SMART principle. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. We could touch on that in a minute. But also getting a mixture of like short and medium term goals to keep you focused. You know what I mean? Because it's great one goal, but like motivation's going to come and go. You're going to have distractions. What's going to keep you on track in the meantime? So in terms of the SMART, so it's a little acronym. So specific, measurable, actionable. What's our
Realistic.
realistic? That's it.
I
And
don't know.
time.
I was sitting there
Yeah,
going,
you got it. You got it. That was the first point you mentioned. Yeah. So actually specifying what you want to do, like not just saying I want to lose weight. Set yourself. Obviously, we don't want to be obsessed with scales, but set something in particular. So don't just say I want to get fitter. Say I want to feel stronger. I want my clothes to fit better. Stuff like that. Measurable. If you can't quantify it, you can't actually track it. Actionable. So again, what can we actually do to take? Like, can you structure actions towards that goal? Realistic. You're not going to add 100 kilo onto your squat in 4 weeks. And then time constraints. Because if you don't put an end date on that, then you're not going to hold yourself accountable. That's why I actually posted about this. That's why a lot of people I think have kind of fell off slightly, because a lot of people use holidays as their time constraint. Do you know what I mean? So say, oh, I've my holiday, I'm going away to fucking Benidorm in 6
where are we
weeks.
going? I'm not going to fucking Benidorm.
Whatever, I don't know where people go. I'll just go to festivals. But yeah, so if you have that to keep yourself accountable, or if you have a coach, you know what I mean? So if you don't have an end date that you're working towards, it's very easy to lose focus.
Yeah. So like, I think you're in the exact same position as me. One of the, like, I seen you use on your story a while ago, was like, one of my non-negotiables is like having a coach.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's that little bit of an investment where I can have somebody to just take the reins.
Keep you on track.
Like adherence, like, especially, you know, the way Mark is, like, you best believe I'm not eating the way he has me eating if he's not if I don't have to report to him once a week.
Yeah.
And I've made the best progress because of it.
Yeah. And again, when we go back to that sort of the prep phase, like adherence is even, because your mind just goes fucking 90. You know what I mean? You're always overthinking stuff. Like typically if I have someone deep into a dieting phase, or if they're struggling with adherence, you're not giving them more leeway. You're nearly holding them more accountable. So obviously if they're very deep into a prep or a photo shoot prep, something like that, then we're going to have them checking in twice a week. And also, again, it's kind of like a bell-shaped curve, but then if you have people who are struggling to adhere, you nearly want to take more control. So you're asking them to check in twice a week, and I've seen that it works wonders.
So. Yeah, so even like, especially because I assume, I feel like you do quite an in-depth once a week check-in, and then you and then even if it's like, just give me a text.
Yeah,
give me a text. It takes me. I'll send you over a voice note. It really is no time out of my day, and if it can help you, use it. That's what I'm here for. I'm not just here for you check in once a week.
Yeah, definitely. And also sometimes I request, obviously now going back to like training intensity from home, I've requested like videos.
Yeah,
so show me how hard. Yeah. So I'm not counting your reps. I want to see in your face how far you can take this, how close to failure you can actually train.
Are your eyes bleeding? Yeah, no, I did that as well, especially with our higher rep work. So important that we're taking them nasty reps. Yeah. For us to benefit, as I said at the start.
Yeah, I think Scott Stevenson calls it testicular fortitude.
Yeah,
well,
so
he has a nutsack day where he literally just picks exercises he hates that just suck, and he just does it to build that mental resilience, and it's great.
Yeah, I who have I heard use that? I think I heard hypertrophy coach use that or something like that. I've definitely heard it before. So when it comes to adherence, if you are the person who can genuinely coach themselves, There's very few. Like Mark
Very
Hodson.
good.
Mark Hodson can coach himself because he's a robot. I don't. Um,
He has a coach now.
he has a coach now. He's
Yeah.
working with Patrick Thor. Yeah, but he has the ability to.
Yeah.
And now I prep myself for both competitions, and now looking back, that was silly.
I prepped myself for the first one, and it wasn't the most effective way, but it was nearly the most valuable because of how much fuck
You
up
learn,
I done and how much I learned.
yeah.
So, like again, Joe Kavanagh is like win or lose. So you can do it yourself. You're going to learn a lot, but if your end goal is to make progress, probably should get a coach. They know more. Like and even not just if they know more, if they're just going to keep you on track.
Yeah, no, it's not even that. I suppose you've probably seen that yourself. It's like you get to 3 weeks out, your head is in the bin.
Yeah.
I need to pull off more cardio, less food. It's like I definitely look better 3 weeks out than I did on show day. Definitely.
I definitely do. Yeah. 100%.
And that's
I remember to like 1,600 calories just like 3 weeks out, and it was 2 1-hour cardio sessions and still my weight session 5 times a week. And that was I think my lowest I got down to like 82 kilo, and that was kind of like exoskeleton shit.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because when you're coaching somebody, you're like, no, you don't do that. What the fuck would you be doing that for?
Yeah.
Like obviously if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. Like we're better off having the drop fill for 3 weeks than coming in fat. But like there's
not letting your mind wander.
If you're ready at that 3 week out mark, why the hell are you continuing to dig yourself into a big hole of pulling
already potentially
muscle off?
So
yeah, exactly. You just drop off of performance, not smart, and hence why having a coach, especially in that situation, is so important.
Yeah, and I don't want to delve into dieting too much because we want to keep this centered around off season. But basically, just a quick little note for people: if you are going into a dieting phase, just remember what built the tissue will keep it. So always keep performance based. Like in your off season, we want to get strong as fuck. In a dieting phase, we want to maintain that. Obviously, if we can add reps, do so. But people dropping weight, they're just doing high volume stuff. But like, it's not the same stimulus. If that's not what got it there, it's not going to keep it there.
But we're just bringing in the muscle, bro. just bringing in the muscle.
It'll burn.
Yeah. But I suppose on that note, like, you may look at let's say the likes of the FST7 training. It's like you look at that, like I can't remember his name. That's really gonna annoy me now. It's like he trains like Phil Heath and he trained like Jeremy Bundia.
What should you say? FST7.
FST7. Fascial stretch training. It's your man. Oh, fuck's sake! That's really gonna bother me now. But it's a bro split where they do 67 sets. Or not actually 67 sets. Just a silly amount of sets. And all these guys are ginormous. So I think from that perspective, it's another opportunity to say that everything works.
Yeah, well, another thing we have to appreciate that is just because that's what works for them now. Because like when you have that much muscle mass, like Phil Heath, like Brandia, and so on, when you're a pro, you need a lot of volume in each session to stimulate or to grow.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, so what got people, they might look like that now, and that might be more applicable for them now. But when they were 75 kilo, they probably weren't doing that much volume. You know what I mean? What got them there is probably the higher frequency stuff.
Yeah, and also like, just because people train like that doesn't mean that it's right. Like I'm sure you've seen the post going around recently about the V handle roll.
Yeah.
That's kind of breaking the internet, and like if you
got a nice little landmine off. I was tempted to get one. I was like, no, it just doesn't make sense. So
a landmine.
Got it from a Strength Shop. Strength Shop do a lovely one.
Very good. But like, just because somebody on Instagram is doing it, it doesn't mean that it's suited for you. And if anything, like, it could be so far from suited from you that you will just like not progress at half the rate that you
You'll injure
potentially
yourself.
could
You
have
know what I mean? You'll get golfer's elbow doing that stuff. So yeah, like, I think once you have a decent appreciation for biomechanics, if you understand anatomy and you actually understand muscle insertions, like everything just makes sense.
been. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not about
On
chasing what's socially acceptable and what everyone else does.
yeah, I have RTS in 2 days' time online, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But obviously meant to be in person, but it will be in person when they're allowed open
And
up out
possible.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's because it's in London. I think we're there. The first one could be in a month's time, which would be deadly, but we
Yeah.
shall see. So moving on, we touched on this already. I just have a little pointer saying the long game and patience. So what I mean by that is like you only, especially drug free, like your ability to put on actual muscle tissue is it's going to take time, and we've touched on it a lot. Just be patient and realize that every single time you diet down, you're going to have new muscle if you take your time with things and you spend like a decent amount of time in a surplus. You have to, yeah, you just have to be able to own and kind of it's
Focus. I mean, don't lose sight of the long-term goal.
yeah, exactly. um
It's so easy to chase those short or sort of short-term like dopamine highs when you're just like looking for that quick little like benefit
yeah,
or whatever it is. But like you know that if it takes longer, it's probably going to be better.
absolutely, yeah. um I think on that note, and this is probably something you will really agree with me on, is if like when we look at bulking and we watch just as me 3 years ago, it's like you watch a bulking video on YouTube and it's like Jay Cutler or it's Eddie Hall or something like that,
Yeah,
and you're like, fuck me, I have to eat like that.
yeah.
These people, like these people are what weight is even what weight even are they? About fucking.
Oh, Cutler be well over fucking 330 in his off season. Like,
That's what I mean. So like,
yeah,
you are literally half that person.
yeah. He
So
ate you.
yeah.
You would be included in that bulk in the season, in that fucking day in the life.
So what we need to take into consideration is because they need to put in such enormous amounts of food that the quality of the food that they eat in a lot of extent is quite low. And that is because their physical capacity to put food into their mouth is like the amount of food that they're eating is ridiculous compared to like me, for example. Like,
Yeah.
So when you're setting up your food, like these dirty bulks are just a way of you pretending to, or of you just not caring about your food, not caring about your health, and just you using this dirty bulk analogy as a way of eating what you want to try,
It's
like
just
eat like a
self-justification of, like, you know yourself that you shouldn't be doing it. Like, these people are doing it because they can't handle that capacity of food. And it's at that stage, it is about getting the calories in.
yeah.
And you're not at that stage. You know what I mean? There's too many people, I use the analogy, they're training, they're eating like a 300-pound bodybuilder, and they're training probably even less than a 150-pound bikini athlete.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even training that hard.
Yeah.
Or do they have that muscle mass?
Like, yeah, no, that sums it up perfectly. It's like your calories aren't that high. Keep your fucking veg in, keep your
Yeah.
fruit in. So like what I would like to do is I like the idea of just because of how I'm working with Mark at the moment. It's like, okay, so what we did was when I sat at a maintenance for a while, it's like, okay, I'm gonna put as much veg in here as possible, as much fruit and as much veg in here as possible,
Yeah.
making sure my fat sources are micronutrient dense,
Mm-hmm.
and that I have some stable micronutrition, and I'm getting in some decent food.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add low quality food around that. So I'll add my Cocoa Pops in. I'll hammer 400 grams of Cocoa Pops post workout if you want me to. Not that it's up there, but like I will keep my good food as a consistent,
Yeah.
and just add calories in the round. We're going to touch on peri-workout now in a minute, but like keep your food good.
Yeah.
And if your hunger is not there, one, learn to suck it up, but two, use low quality food after you have the stable base of decent food in already.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And that's, yeah, and you know what, that actually reciprocates my same philosophy on training. So it's quality over quantity. So there's no point just adding in more food for the sake of it if you don't have that foundation. Like, add it in when you need to. Same thing, like taking training to failure in a controlled, sort of stable, and like with decent quality within your reps. When you hit failure, then you can kind of cheat with a few reps. It's the same sort of approach. Do you know what I mean? So more isn't always better, but you have to have that foundation of quality, and
Yeah.
then the bit of extra cheating might actually help.
Yeah.
But
So,
cheating your full way up there is pointless.
yeah, exactly. Like, all your, you have to be conscious of what food you're using and stuff, because there's a lot of extent, like if you're dirty bulking and you're hammering down pizzas and stuff, like they're causing masses of inflammation. You're not be using them towards recovery for performance. If anything, they're a detriment to your recovery when you could get the exact same calories in from decent food.
Yeah.
Um, like, and the impact that they have on digestion and stuff as well is massive.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's going to come back down to your adherence. Like, if you feel like shit, your training's going to suffer and you're not going to feel as motivated.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
get food that's going to digest well, that's going to allow you to get the calories in, to feel good, and therefore train better.
Yeah. So everything that we touch on and everything that I ever touch on in a podcast is, these are little pieces to a very big puzzle.
Yeah.
And some fundamentals that we need to touch on that are just non-negotiable and just have to be hitting. Like, we have to have some sort of routine that prioritize these things. Our lifestyle considerations, like our sleep and our stress.
Yes.
So we don't necessarily need to touch on reasoning behind, like, do you want to touch on the importance of these things? I have touched on them before.
It's very easy to go down a rabbit hole with this stuff and
Yeah,
get into
yeah,
the science of sleep and so on. But like, in layman's terms, you know what I mean? Like, if your sleep is shit, your mood is down, your performance is down, your appetite's up and low. Like, you know yourself, if you get a shit night's sleep and you're running off stimulants, probably not going to be very productive.
yeah,
So we don't really need to get too much into the, like, as I said, you can do a full podcast on sleep. You can do 2, 4, 6 podcasts on like lifestyle optimization. But yeah, just kind of like summarizing of what to have as a foundation would definitely be getting good quality sleep. Again, that's one thing, people focus too much on quantity. Like, I was in bed for 8 hours, but like, you're tossing turning, like your
I was
brain was still going haywire.
opened my phone 4 o'clock, and
Yeah.
yeah. So like, our sleep stress spaghetti tend to go hand in hand. That if our stress is crap, if our sleep is crap, our stress tends to be high. Opposite way
Yeah.
around as well. These are going to like have negative effects on our ability to use food. We're going to
Yeah.
use food to be stored as fat, as opposed to being using towards recovery and performance.
Yeah.
Potentially increased inflammation, shitty digestion, and as I said, little pieces in the puzzle that we will leave there. So, gaining with minimal fat gain, productive or not, or what is your opinion on this?
Well, like pretty much anything in health and fitness, it depends.
Yeah.
And I know it seems like such a cop out, like, but it's just so individual. So some people, you will tell them you just have to accept you're going to put on fat, and then, as I say, some people will just use it as a cop out to neglect the quality of their nutrition and their health. So it's about assessing the client, seeing how much muscle mass they have, how much they are pushing to gain, how long they've been gaining. But like, if you have those problem areas, you know, where you can actually feel it, where you actually feel the fat accumulating, and you don't have that much muscle mass, then like obviously we might want to scale it back in regards to calories. And people neglecting cardio, like I still keep cardio in the off season.
Of course.
That's and not just like obviously it is a fat burning tool. Like it's not great, but like you're burning fat when you're doing it. But by having a better aerobic capacity, that's going to increase your ability to recover between sets.
And
So
your stress management and your digestion and
yeah,
stuff and your appetite. So
yeah,
like,
and for routine as well. So fasted cardio, we're not going to get into the physiological benefits because much isn't that much. But again, we want to keep routine. We want to keep ourselves adherable, and starting the day off with a bit of cardio, like you're starting on the front foot.
is a good way of kind of winning that morning if it's a possibility. And it could be a possibility at the moment. Like if you have a bike at home, why not? And also it's lovely out at the moment. So like getting in like a 20-minute walk first thing in the morning set you up for a nice day. So especially when we have the time now, why not make the most out of it? So when it comes to gaining with a minimal amount of fat gain, this can be unproductive, but it depends on the goal. As you said, it depends who's sitting in front of you. If you struggle with your image, and you putting on body fat is going to have a negative effect on your mental health, don't. Like what we need to take into consideration is this isn't on the topic of body, like getting ready for a show, because like if you're trying to compete, you just do what you do. It's like if I need to put on some fat, I put on some fat. But if you just like to train and you want to stay lean and put on a bit of tissue over the next couple of years, you love your training and you just want to make sure that like I'm gaining, but just at a slight, just a slight bit, and all it is kind of muscle.
You're feeling strong and looking good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then that is like I like the idea of that. Like that is a perfect way of keeping your health markers in check. Now it's as we said, it's not as productive, but it's definitely realistic for the majority of people. So,
well, that's the thing. It might be more productive if they're more likely to adhere to it.
oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Balance.
So in that case, just take your time with it and just chase performance, chase adding kilos here and there, and when you do that forever, you'll build tissue. And especially like if you're logbooking things and you train consistently, give yourself time. It will come.
Yeah.
You're
like a simple marker where like if you're doubting, if you think that you are putting on too much fat, again, if you actually feel proper sluggish, like a little mini cut, we'll actually segue into that in a minute. But like a little mini cut can be beneficial, but a nice little marker just to check like how deep is your belly button. You know what I mean? Like
I can't see it.
Yeah, like then
how deep is your belly button?
Yeah, like people don't think about that.
No, I have a weirdly deep belly button anyway though.
What? You're really lean, especially now.
I'm not.
I've seen your check-ins. You're like,
yeah. I suppose.
See, we have different perceptions once you've been on stage.
Yeah.
Well, like, there's lean and then there's competition lean.
Yeah. No, I'm
off-season lean.
I'm healthy at the moment. I don't have a fat face. I don't snore. It's all coming. Yeah. You're gonna hear me like snoring while I'm awake into the microphone and time.
Yeah, I'm kind of conscious of that.
Yeah. So I don't have any lower back pumps or calf pumps at the moment, but it's all in the next. It's all coming.
Yeah, further down the line.
So yeah, on that to finish that off. Yeah, you do you. If that makes you happy, then absolutely. I really think it's a good idea. But I would also be conscious about the fact that you're not comfortable to do that, and maybe digging a bit deeper into why you're not comfortable to do it. And working with a coach that specializes in that would be a great idea. If that's something that you're interested in, give me a text and I'll shoot you in the right direction of a coach. Of a coach that you would be of massive benefit to work with. And I think if that is the situation that you're in, then like if this is going to have an impact on your mental health, then it will be a good plan to get on top of that and as I said, I will point you in the right direction of a good coach.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think one key thing to highlight is if your coach isn't asking you any subjective questions along those lines, you might have a few doubts. Like if they're just saying, "What numbers did you hit? Show me your MyFitnessPal. What's your logbook?" and that's that. I know some coaches operate like that if they are like top tier
if
and
you're
they have
if
clients.
you're if you're a
Yeah, if
bodybuilder coach, yeah.
yeah, if you're like that. So obviously, my coach, that's kind of how I report to him. It's about numbers. But if you do kind of struggle with any mental health and your coach doesn't ask any subjective questions like, how's your energy? Like, actually, we still cover that stuff, but like, how do you feel? Like, what's your motivation? Like, if they aren't even touching on that and they're just giving you an Excel sheet, like,
I think
again,
that's really
questions
really
to be
important,
asked.
that even if all you're getting is calories and a program, yeah,
There's not
um,
much value there. You know what I mean? You can
yeah,
download them. There's
e-
like there's
uh,
calorie calculators for free. You can now there are a lot of shit programs as well. Like, but again, it's you need more value from a coach than just that.
yeah, like you can go sign up to hypertrophycoach.com or
Yeah.
whatever it is. You'll get a decent program. And if that suits you, go for it. Like
You
I
see Lane Norton's new app.
no,
So he created one. It's like MyFitnessPal. It's called Carbon,
okay,
and basically it's subscription based. I think it's 12 quid a month, something like that, maybe 15. But basically you put in your BMI and stuff, and it'll give you your macros. You can track it. It looks a lot neater than MyFitnessPal. But then also if you put in your goals and stuff, it'll tell you like not just to drop calories, but like it'll give you little macronutrient
that's cool.
adjustments.
Um,
So yeah, it's
I'll
kind of a coaching app.
and have you used not fucking, that's not the name of it. It's not called that. Crap. That's gonna really annoy me now. It's another nutrition app that gives you more in depth.
Yeah.
Something
Eat
to do with
this much. Do you hear that one? No.
it's something to do
This
with
much. There's
C.
Nutritics. Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah,
I'll send
Nutritics
it.
is a good one if you want to nerd out on like the micronutrition and stuff
That's
like that.
yeah. That's
That's
exactly.
very in depth. MyFitnessPal and more accurate.
Yeah,
But again, it's not applicable to everyone.
but that's cool. I like
Yeah,
the idea of that is cool, just to see what you're potentially missing out on.
the fact
Uh,
that it's there and it's readily available to everyone, like you know what I mean. You don't have to have a great understanding. Like it's so easy to research.
yeah, you don't have to have a coach doing it for you
Yeah.
for little things like that. Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on. Rate of gain.
Yes. Right. So again, it depends. Such a cop out. But look, if you're putting on much more than half a kilo a week, again, there's probably fat gain there, and that's probably half kilo is very generous, even for like assisted.
Yeah, it's a percentage wise on body weight. It depends. Like, I don't even know what percentage you should be looking for. You'd be looking for like zero
Yeah,
point 0.5, so something in the rounds of that. But I think you're right to say if you're gaining a pound a week beyond your first, let's say, 3 weeks,
yeah. So it's going
it,
to depend where you are as well within your training cycle, within your training history. Um, like we know that we can be very responsive in the first. We have beginner gains where we're just going to strength's going to shoot up, muscle's going to add on very quickly in your first couple of weeks, couple of months of training if you have a decent program. But
or
obviously that
even if you
works.
follow a shit program as well.
Yeah, but if you apply yourself to a shape program, which goes back to the very first point we made.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, continue.
Um. So yeah, what we
Completely
right again.
lost.
Yeah, it was right again.
Yeah, so like,
Oh, just basically keep yourself. Measurements can be very useful, but again, if we are looking physique based, we want to be looking at the picture. Like
yeah,
look in the mirror. That's why you're taking progress pictures each week,
yeah,
and you're looking at them. And obviously, we're not going to see visual changes each week, but we want it for those accountability factors, and then to scale it back and look, say, you never look at the previous week. Always look at this week compared to 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then that's where you're going to see the difference. But if you compare this week to last week, you're like, oh, there's not that much of a change and I've done everything right. You're just going to lose motivation.
Yeah.
So always compare yourself to check in 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and then move on 1 week, and then same thing.
Yeah.
2, 3.
Or even coming down the line and looking back 6, 8, 12 weeks as well, when you can do that as well, is when you will actually be looking like, oh, okay, yeah, I actually have.
Yeah, if you have a trained eye, then yeah, you can see these differences in 2, 3, 4 weeks. But like that's odds are that's what your coach is doing. They're looking at you in those time frames, to see those marginal gains. You might not notice that your waist has gone in a slight bit, or that there's slight more definition in your lower back. But if you look back at your 6 weeks so far, that's when you'll see the difference.
Daddy. And then we could also look at at what stage is the fat gain that we put on of not sorry, I went about that arseways. So at what stage are we getting limited return when it comes to how high can our body fat get that is just like a detriment to we're too inflamed, we're too hard to carry around, it's actually having a negative effect on our ability to eat. So this is going to touch on when to mini cut.
Yeah.
So
so again, it's if you find yourself gassed between sessions, obviously we want to keep cardio in between, well, not between sessions, but between sets. We want to keep some cardio in for that reason, and that also might be an indicator that your food's too high. Like if you're still digesting your food and if you can't train, if you find it's negatively impacting, we want to be performance based for any off season. So if we find that it's having a negative impact there, then you should address it. And mini cuts can be very useful, especially if you're kind of losing that motivation. You want to see that quick change again, like the short dopamine high. You can dig deep for 3 weeks. You can go really low calorie, and if you're keeping active and your protein's so high, you're not really going to see any appreciable muscle loss, if any, within 3 weeks, no matter how low your calories go.
Probably will feel better and probably will perform better.
And it's going to increase your insulin sensitivity and so on, and how you actually partition nutrients. So actually just putting yourself in a better phase. So obviously we want to commit to the long-term goal, but when you find that you're struggling to, I've done 3 or 4 weeks really aggressive cut, at 105 kilo, and I pull down to 200 grams carbs. I know it's shit, but if you're running off stimulants, if you can just keep intense, if you can keep performance there and just dig deep for just know that's 2 or 3 weeks, then you slowly add calories back in, you're going to feel much better.
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases, if you're a bloke, if you're eating enough protein, your program is decent. You know what to do with your program when it comes to pulling down your volume. You go 4 week, no carb, you lose a lot of glycogen. Your training's it's gonna be a shit time, but you're not. Especially if you have a high amount of body fat, I think that's really important as well. Depending where you are, if you let's say it's that drop between 15 and 10, it's a little bit low.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go between 20 and 15. If you're dropping the amount of tissue that you lose will be minimal. The amount of performance that you lose will be minimal. You probably begin to sleep better. You probably begin to feel more energy.
The same as even just throwing in a few fasting windows. So that's something that, every couple of weeks I'll ask my clients to do a 16 or 20 hour fast. It's not going to kill you. People have to realize, obviously we see food as energy, but every adipose cell, every fat tissue within our body is energy source. You know what I mean? So when we don't eat, it's not as if we don't eat for 1 day that we're going to pass out. How long does it take someone to starve to death? Your body's just going to use what's there as energy until you give it more energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose especially the fasting. for example, I quite like the idea of it. Would Mark
Yeah.
let me do it? Fuck no. No, but like taking one step back to take two steps forward if needed is a good idea.
Yeah.
Like if that's like, let's say we were to do a 24-hour fast every 21 days or something like that, or even shorten your window on non-training days or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the shortening of the window of your eating window on your non-training days is a good plan. So you could have an 8-hour eating window on a non-training day and a 12-hour on a training day. I think I like the idea of leaving 12 to 12. Would you agree?
It's sort of down to the individual. So you know what I mean. As long as as long as you're able to do that.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah. Obviously,
so
like
when
if
you
you can get,
train, yeah,
deadly. Okay.
um,
So when it comes to when to actually take a mini cut, a couple of things that we'd be looking for. I'd say the first thing to go, if you're not tracking your blood glucose, will be your ability to get a pump in the gym. If you're pumping in carbs and you're not getting a pump, something funky going on there.
yeah.
Give it a couple of sessions. If that's continuing to happen, diet would be a good idea to have a look at your lifestyle factors. See, is there anything that's actually in the way, or is it that you have been in surplus for the last 20 weeks and your body's ready for a 4-week fat loss phase?
Bit of a break. You know what I mean? Because you have to appreciate that, like your body will do its utmost best to maintain homeostasis, which means it'll keep everything in balance. Your body does not want to grow. Your
Yeah,
body does not want to lose fat. You have to kind of force it into those regions, and yeah, unless you are kind of being relentless with it,
yeah,
it's not going to change.
and hence why, like, if we look at these so called hard gainers, like, we do see a lot of kind of metabolic adaptation to both an increase and decrease in food.
Yeah,
And like, in that case of somebody who's really struggles to eat or to gain, something that I like to do is have a look at, as you said, cardio. Like, cardio wise, imagine we can pull your resting heart rate down from 70 to 50. The calories that you then use at rest, your surplus is going to be higher. So
yeah.
that's another big reason to have cardio in. I completely lost my train of thought there. That was so bad.
Yeah, just talking about health markers. Went to mini cut. So again, like if you find your resting heart rate has gone up a good bit, that might be a sign of fatigue. If you track HRV, heart rate variability,
Yeah,
that's another good marker. If you're like, this is what you mean by not being able to chase a pump if you're still on high carbs. Odds are, like, obviously this is a bit invasive and not many people track it, but if your blood glucose
yeah.
has spiked, then your body's not producing enough insulin, or it's not utilizing it properly to break down and drive
And
those glucose
carbohydrates. Yeah,
into
yeah.
muscle. Yeah. So
Um. So let's move on. Where to add calt?
peri-workout.
Yeah.
As I say, we want to be performance based. We want to make sure that we are able to perform in the gym. If we need more energy because we're upping our volume, we're upping our intensity, that's where I think the food should be. If you're struggling with digestion, intra-workout carbs, easy way, you're just drinking it. And you know that's going to be utilised. Now, obviously then that's going to come back to digestion and so on. So with our peri-workout nutrition, so anything, just to clarify, that's pre, intra and post. Basically we want to leave enough time before and after our workout so we're in a relaxed state so our body will actually utilize those nutrients. Sorry. Yeah, so giving yourself at least an hour pre and post workout so that we are in that parasympathetic state when our blood flow is to our digestive organs, so we can actually break down and assimilate nutrients from the food or from the liquids. So that's why intra-workout carbs and EAAs and stuff, that's why they're highly formulated, because they're very easy to digest, where normally it's hard to digest food. So when you're training, it's probably, if you eat a bagel during a workout, your body is not going to use it that well because all the blood flow is to your muscles. I'm gonna hold my hand up. We used to do that. I used to bring a pack of bagels in when we were deadlifting.
No. Oh yeah, that's like powerlifters do that, and it's like having bowl of
Yeah.
cereal while I warm up.
Between your 8-minute rest period between sets.
Yeah.
That's a shout out to Lawrence King and Sean Hawk.
So, where can we go from this? Yeah, so I'm going to completely agree. Adjicals from once you have your stable maintenance adjicals around your peri-workout until it starts to interfere with your ability to actually digest food.
Yeah.
So we can also add them into the post workout meal as well. It's probably a good plan. So, and then look, like, I like the idea of, to a certain extent, just adding sugars where we can. So I like the idea of using like a honey on your post-workout meal and your meal after that. I like the
Yeah,
idea.
that's a good point, and it's actually like scientifically proven. If you get a mixture of fructose and glucose of the different sugars, your body's actually going to utilize it a lot better. So that insulin spike, they complement each other very well, and that's going to increase. Like, insulin is going to serve as basically a transportation mechanism to drive carbohydrates and protein into the cell when it's needed. And by using a mixture of like simple carbohydrates like rice, oats, and stuff like that with fructose, it just increases. So even if the quantity is the same, if you have 100 grams of Cocoa Pops or if you have 100 grams of sugar, if you have fructose comes into it because if we have fruit in there as well, it's going to increase that. So 100 grams of Cocoa Pops or 100 grams of carbs from bananas, let's say that increases, we're just going off arbitrary numbers, let's say that's giving you an 80% return. If you go 80 grams of carbohydrates from Cocoa Pops and 20 grams of carbohydrates from a banana, so you're still only getting 100 grams of carbohydrates, the blend is actually going to increase how your body digests it.
Yeah, so you kind of see people use that, maybe not as much anymore, but use that kind of like intra-workout as well.
Yeah.
Not that, like, I think that we also are really sweating the small stuff there as well. So
yeah,
it depends.
it depends on who we're talking to in this off season. If it is
exactly. So yeah, and then when it comes to adding in extra calories there, I like at some stage we're going to have to eat even when we're not hungry, unfortunately. Depending on who you are, actually, like a lot of females will will never be able to out eat their appetite, especially in even when we're in a surplus. But what we can do in that situation is just kind of, when it comes to females, like, use more veg. If their hunger is actually at us, and when it comes to males, I like the idea of just using fats, bigger servings of fats, and maybe if you want to keep them to rest days, you usually kind of go higher fat on a rest day as opposed to a training day. To a certain
You're saying
extent,
for males trying to get extra calories in when their appetite's low?
No, yeah, sorry, yeah, I went two tangents there. So I went, females can increase calories by adding veg and stuff, or like a high volume carbohydrates.
Yeah.
As for males, what you can start to do is add
stuff in.
Add your nut butters in. Add them where you can. So if you're hungry in the morning, have a decent meal in the morning. If you need to start to pull down your amount of veg, ideally not. And if you're doing that, making sure your fat sources in general are nutrient dense.
Yeah.
So if you're not eating salmon regularly, making sure you're using a krill oil or a fish oil or something like that. And then, like, just continue. Honestly, it's we just need to be patient in the surplus. Make sure that we're progressing our weights. We're getting stronger. Our weight is going up a little bit a month, let's say. and just be patient with it. Be patient with it. That's all it's going to be down to, really.
Yeah, if you feel stronger and your appetite's going up, that's a good marker that you're making progress. In terms of like macronutrient division, I would be more inclined to push carbohydrates first. So when we are at a gain phase, we're trying to add calories.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
I'm not sure if we did mention that or not. I'd definitely prioritize putting carbs in first, and then obviously when our appetite is starting to go down, then you can kind of go with the fats, because obviously we know they're more calorically dense and less volume. And then on non-training days, I'd actually switch those ratios around a bit. So I'd maybe half, then add in like 20. Well, again, these are arbitrary numbers based on the individual. But I would pull carbs down and then
Add fats in.
compensate by having the calories. Like obviously our calories are going to be slightly less because we're not, like, our output is a lot less. But for the lower volume stuff, I'd definitely be putting in fats in.
Yeah, and then what? I don't know what's wrong with me. I keep fucking losing my train of thought. I'm awful. That really, really annoys me. And
Little edit.
I'm not even gonna bother, man. I'm not even gonna
Raw
bother.
cuts.
No. Oh yeah, fuck yeah. How, like, oh man. Protein wise.
Yeah.
So protein wise, so I what I do is I know what I'm going to talk about, and then I go back to listen to you, and then I'm like, oh shit, it's gone. So protein wise, because when we're in a surplus, carbohydrates are so protein sparing, we can potentially begin to taper protein down as our carbs go up. To a certain extent now, like Mark's a big fan of high proteins or high protein. So I will keep my protein high, because I'm a big fan of doing what your coach tells you to do, whether you believe in it or not. Now
you're not going to adhere to the plan. You know what I mean? So if you don't trust your coach, there's the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Higher protein in a fat loss phase or in a surplus is going to potentially keep you leaner. Potentially, if you're still hungry, it will keep you. It's more satiating. Do I think he'll begin to pull protein down and taper carbs up over the next 6 months? Probably. We shall see.
If you get to that stage where you are really just struggling to get the food in, but again, just want to be aware that you're in a gain of phase, so you're looking to put on tissue, so it means you're going to have a higher demand. So it's just allowing for that, like, accrual of muscle tissue, and actually having the protein there ready to go, so that when your body does need it, like, the amino acids are already there, broke down, ready to allow for muscle growth.
Okay. 2 seconds there. So that is my notes gone. Do you have anything to add? Actually, you do. Yeah, you do. So touching on relationship with food.
Oh yeah. So the social aspect, again, if we're talking about a long term gain of phase, we want to allow for the social eating of food. That's one thing that's very commonly ignored. So allowing your clients, like, they're not going to have 10 weeks straight of just that meal plan that you gave them, and macros stuff. You want to allow them to have free meals, just so they don't feel like kind of constrained to just eat out of Tupperware. So
I'm still eating out of Tupperware at home.
Yeah, I still do it. Like,
I
still eat all my meals out of Tupperware, and I haven't left the house in 8 weeks.
I'm the same.
Jokes I have left, but just giving them kind of, like, if they're in a relationship, just say, right, is there a day you're about off, like, say every 2 weeks, and say, right, you, like, schedule a date, let them go out for food with their partner. It's going to keep them more adherable. And then you just say the next day that I want a PB in this lift. You know what I mean? Use those calories. You have to earn them, and it's going to give them that short-term goal to work towards. And to, that if you're very driven and you're not really craving to go off plan, you say, okay, I have a date night on Saturday with my partner, going Nando's. Can't wait.
Cheeky.
I can't wait from the open, man.
I know. I don't really like Nando's, to be honest.
Oh, we're going to have a domestic. But if you aren't really keen, if you're not, and it's nearly guilt already kicking in. So what you're going to do is you're going to bust your bollocks that week training because you have to earn those calories. Like that's saying for someone who wants to keep lean in their off season. And then also it's just going to keep people accountable. They have something to work towards. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of release. Not everyone's going to go into a robot mode in off season where they're just going to eat off that meal plan. So giving them that social aspect is very, very essential for adherence.
Yeah, and also I think like if we can also like get into people's head that there is no such thing as good food and bad food, and like the potential benefits that you're getting from having that off-plan meal are going to outweigh you being on plan. You'll be able to spend time with your family or your friends.
Yeah, physiologically, it's not, you're not looking for the benefit. That's going to make you more adherable long term. So
yeah, exactly. Like especially in an off season, use this time. Be social, like socialize now that you can. Like there will be a stage when you might have to, like, not be able to. It like depends.
No, it does happen. Like
Yeah.
I've
Like,
been in that situation where like my granddad's birthday is the day after mine, and I was on prep for his 80th. And actually this year then, even though the shows were cancelled, it was my nanny's 90th or something. I don't know if she's old. and yeah, like you just went there and you're like, oh, I feel so bad, like not eating what's on the menu and stuff like that. But use it in your off season. Keep yourself accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these things are important, and if and when the time comes that we're going to stay on plan because we're prepping for. I think that's important to touch on as well, as like unless you have a time constraint where it is a photo shoot or you're prepping for a show, like taking one meal off plan that we plan for, we can work around these things
easy.
Easily is right.
And one salad won't make you skinny.
Yeah.
So it's if you have that sort of anxiety building up because you've been on plan for so long, and then it turns out to an all-out binge, and then you feel guilty, and then you over restrict, and then it's a cyclical pattern, and then you like that's when adherence issues really, really come into play.
Yeah.
But again, that's a full podcast on stuff that I'm not qualified to talk on. Eating disorders, and for anyone actually who is interested in that stuff or feel they may be struggling, Dr. Amelia Thompson is very good with that sort of.
I agree.
He's been phenomenal.
Also, so I'm coach. Obviously, Mark does my food, but I also work with Brian O'Hagan. So,
deadly.
He's. Do you know who he is?
Yeah,
you do. He's savage. Really, really, really. He's a good friend of mine. He's just a nice bloke. He's really, really, really good coach. And like, if that's usually where I will point people in the direction. I think I touched on this in the last podcast. You're not the coach for everybody, so being really good at referring out is really important. If you
there's nothing wrong with saying that's outside of your wheelhouse. You don't want to be a jack of all trades or like a phony and giving people disinformation. That's going to lead them into worse problems. Like if someone comes to you and say, look, I've had this binge eating disorder for this long, and I've put on this much, and I've just had a kid. Like, you're not a field psychologist, you're not a postnatal exercise specialist.
Like, to be honest, unless like you can potentially be a body composition specialist, but that's a made up term. It's like
that just means that you're really good at the science. But some people might not need the science. You know what I mean? So you might have all the theory, you might have all the hard skills of how to manipulate all these things, but if you don't have the soft skills of actually coaching, like not everyone needs a body composition specialist.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people need a coach, which includes those soft skills of how to manage stress, how to
the coaching aspect of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it. Where can people find you?
So my business is at optimal_coaching_. don't forget the second one. That's on Instagram. I have a website in the works right now, so that should be going
So do I.
up soon enough.
In a minute.
That's it. This has been a great period to actually work on those things you've been putting off for so long, and really just like strategizing. So yeah, that's me. Find me there. My personal page is Daragh_Allen. Either or, shoot me a message.
I'll
I can
tag
help
you.
you.
I'll tag you anyway in everything.
Show notes and stuff. Yeah, so that's me. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
No problem at all. So as I said, it would be cool to get on you and Mark, and we'll just have a chat and maybe decide on potential.
Take some snippets out of it if there's anything useful.
So what you can do is, I'm going to throw this up on YouTube. And if you, as you said, if you want to screen record something, throw on your Instagram, absolutely be a good plan. We can talk about this when I end the call or end the podcast, which I'm going to do now. Right. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we shall be back soon.